December 2006. The end of another year. Time flies. I still have no recollection of what the hell I was doing in December of 2006, other than working at Norlake Manufacturing. So let's just get to the books that I read in December 2006. And the first one is Batman, Dead White by John Shirley. And this says on the front, the Dark Knight faces the toughest challenge of his young career in this thrilling new adventure. So, early Batman adventure here. The villain is called White Eyes. He's a white supremacist. He has a bunch of new weapons, and he wants to attack the capital of the United States. But first, he's going to test out his weapons and his white supremacy militia against Batman in Gotham City. John Shirley, fantastic author, and a great young Batman adventure, Batman Dead White by John Shirley. Next up, we have Ask the Parrot by Richard Stark. This is the 23rd of 24 Parker novels. Parker, the professional thief. And this follows right on the heels of Nobody Runs Forever. Parker is on the run after a botched robbery in that previous book. And he ends up running into this reclusive guy who helps Parker evade the cops and everything. And then the guy offers a job to Parker. He wants to rob the racetrack from which he was fired for blowing the whistle on money laundering that was going on at the racetrack. But, as usual, with a Parker book, things don't go quite as planned. Fantastic stuff. I've never been disappointed in any of the Parker books, and this is no exception. Ask the Parrot by Richard Stark. After that, we have Grave Robbers Wanted, No Experience Necessary by Jeff Strand. This is the first of the Andrew Mayhem novels. After reading and enjoying Mandibles, which I read in November of 2006, I immediately went to our local bookstore. I think at this point it was a Borders Express at our local mall. It was originally a Walden Books. And started ordering Jeff Strand books. You're going to see that coming up. So as I said, this is the first of the Andrew Mayhem books. And Andrew Mayhem is just an average guy. He's got a wife, he's got 2 kids, but he needs money. And he is hired, along with his friend Roger, to find a key that has been buried with somebody. And so Andrew and Roger have to dig up a corpse to find this key. The only problem is, when they dig it up, it's not a corpse, it's somebody who's alive, and, well, mayhem ensues. This is a comedy thriller, and I very much enjoyed it. If you like Jeff Strand's stuff and you haven't read the Andrew Mayhem books, grab this first one and see what you think. There's 5 in the series, I believe. Grave Robbers Wanted, No Experience Necessary by Jeff Strand. After that, we have $100 Baby by Robert B. Parker. And this sees the return of April Kyle. This is a Spencer novel. And in one of the very early Spencer books, I wish I could read titles from this far away because I don't remember the first one that this character appeared in, April Kyle. But it's an early one. And Spencer saves April Kyle, who's a teenage runaway who's gotten into prostitution. And then she returns. I believe it's in Taming a Seahorse. She has moved up in the world, and but needs Spencer's help again. Now she's a successful young woman who runs a I think it says in the description, I think it just says brothel, but a house for sex workers. It's a 100% female business, and April Kyle comes to Spencer because a bunch of men, organized criminals, are trying to move in on the business. So Spencer is going to help her out. I really like the April Kyle stories. The first one, whose name I can't remember, it's like on the tip of my brain, is one of my favorites of the early Spencers, and then Taming a Seahorse, the second one, is up there as well. But this is $100 Baby, Robert B. Parker. I followed that up with a book that was a December staple for a little while, and that's The Stupidest Angel by Christopher Moore. And this has one of the angel characters from Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, and he has come to Earth. He's supposed to perform a miracle, but he just wants to watch TV and one day perhaps be Spider-Man. But he has to perform this miracle, and so it's in this little town. I can't remember the name of the town, but I think it's the one that's in a bunch of Christopher Moore books. And how much do I say? I've talked about this before because I've read it before. This kid sees someone dressed as Santa Claus being murdered, and he thinks it's Santa Claus, and so he wishes for Santa Claus to be alive. So the stupidest angel just goes to the local graveyard and sort of does a come back to life thing and basically creates a bunch of zombies that are going to attack the town, or that do attack the town. I love this book. I need to start reading it again during December. I read it a few Decembers in a row, but I've fallen off. There's so much other stuff to read. But The Stupidest Angel, Christopher Moore, and it's a quick little read. It's possibly just novella sized. Don't remember exactly. Not sure what the page count was, but it's not a bigger book. The penultimate book that I read in December of 2006 was Spiral by Koji Suzuki, and this is the second book in the Ring trilogy. And the main character in this one is Dr. Ando, and he's still grieving for the loss of his son, I believe it is, but he's performing an autopsy on, I believe, someone who was a friend of his, someone from the first book, Professor Ryuji Takayama. Hopefully I'm not butchering that too much. And Takayama's ghost speaks to Dr. Ando, but all of this is going to tie into the Ring and the cursed tape, but it takes and other characters will appear, I believe, from the first book, but it takes what was in the first book and just explodes the story. If that sentence makes any sense. Because just saying it expands on the story isn't enough. And it takes the idea of the cursed tape and it just builds on that in a way that I don't want to say, but I really, really liked it. I really need to finish the trilogy. I've never read the third book, Loop. But Spiral by Koji Suzuki, fantastic book. Maybe not quite as good as The Ring, but it's like the tiniest bit of difference. And then the final book that I read in December of 2006 was The Frost-Haired Vixen by John Zakor, not sure how you pronounce his name. I believe this is the fourth book in the Zachary Nixon series, and the first book that John Zakor wrote by himself. The first three, if I have these numbers correct, the first ones were, he co-wrote them with somebody whose name I'm not going to bother to look up. But this one is the first one to just have his name on it. These are light-hearted science fiction mysteries It takes place in 2061. Zachary Nixon is the last PI, and kind of a throwback. There are flying cars that are all automated, but he always wants to drive his car himself. And, sort of trying to live that hard boiled private eye lifestyle. But in this book, he's hired by Santana Clausa, who is the frost haired vixen. And she is the mutant CEO of the North Pole Organization. Someone is trying to destroy her organization, destroy the holiday by one by one killing off her cloned elves. This all sounds crazy, and it is crazy fun. Although, I do think the co-written books flow a little better, if my memory serves. The co-written books flow a little better than this one with just John Zakauer, or however you say it, writing it. But still, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still it's well-written, entertaining, very entertaining book. The Frost-Haired Vixen by John Zakauer, or however you pronounce it. And that's everything that I read in December of 2006. Not a lot. Looks like 7 books from just glancing down there and trying to count without making it too obvious. Let's see. Do I have a question or recommendation for this video? As usual, I did not think ahead. How about this? Is there a book or books that you read essentially on an annual basis? Reread on an annual basis. I guess that's the best way to phrase that question. Or we can just talk about the books you reread the most if you're a rereader. So for a while, obviously, I've already mentioned, I was reading The Stupidest Angel every December. I did it 2 or 3 in a row. I don't recall exactly how many. Could have been more than that. We'll see as we go through the videos. I think that was the only thing that I did. I would reread annually. There was a point, I've mentioned this, A Prayer for the Dying by Jack Higgins. It's one of my favorite books. And then he has another one. Wow, this is terrible, that I don't remember the name of. The Devil's Something. And I would reread those. Like, let's just say, in January I read A Prayer for the Dying. And then in February I would read the other one. And then in March I would read A Prayer for the Dying. Then in April I would read the other one. I did that for a little bit. And, but as far as like an annual kind of thing, at this time I'm going to reread this. I think The Stupidest Angel is the only one that falls into that category. I was trying to find something to reread every October. Some Halloween-themed book that every October at some point in the month I would reread that. But I don't think I ever did that. So is there anything that you reread? Doesn't have to be like every June I read this, or every November I read this. Just something that you reread annually. People, occasionally I hear people joke about when you say a word so much it just starts to lose all meaning, and that's already happening to me with reread. It's become less of a word and more of a Tourette's symptom. But let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.